Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech live on YouTube. I've got the bitrate counter here because I'm streaming in a place I've never streamed before. We're no longer on Starlink. I'm not even sure exactly what the internet provider is here. So it might be a little unstable, so I apologize in advance if I get all pixelated and laggy. This is I did a test stream earlier and it seemed to go okay, but typically with my luck, you do a test stream and everything's fine, and then you do an official stream and then everything sucks. So just knowing my luck, this could all go horribly, but I figured I should give it a shot at least. And we're kicking off today's live stream talking about some rumors surrounding the iMac still getting some attention. So it doesn't appear to be going the way of the iPod, thankfully, at least according to Mark Gurman, who's gotten a lot accurate in the past couple of years. But this report was that Apple is in the early stages of testing an over 30-inch iMac. I think that means 32. I don't know why it would need to be smaller than that. But yeah, I do think it's quite bizarre that at least in the desktop space, they're still rocking an M1 chip in the iMac. Like it would have been so simple, so easy, especially when they refreshed the Mac Mini. Now they've refreshed the Mac Studio, even the Mac Pro, which was super lazy, just like the most basic Mac Pro transition to Apple Silicon they could have possibly done. Leave everything the same. Don't even give it the SD card slot. But then, yeah, I guess throw in an M2 Ultra while we're at it. But when it comes to the iMac, no, they just keep shipping it with the M1 chip. I'm guessing the margins on that Mac are probably pretty good, and they likely have a surplus of M1 chips, so they might figure if we just keep shipping those in the iMacs, they'll be fine. We can get rid of a bunch of M1 chips and sell them at a decent profit. Um, but I would love to know the numbers on these things. I would be so curious to know how many people are actually buying the 24-inch iMac. Is it popular? Is it dead? I have no idea. Apple doesn't really break down those individual specs, but it's at least encouraging to know based on these reports that there's some intention. Like this is not really the completed desktop lineup that we'd think. And I kind of understand it on one hand, leading up to this stream. I was kind of thinking like, well, Drew, is the iMac really that important? They've got the Mac Mini, they've got the Mac Studio, they got the Mac Pro. And especially with Apple Silicon now being so fast and so efficient, most people are buying MacBooks these days anyway, more so than usual. In the past, there was a lot of performance compromises whenever you ended up going with a laptop over a desktop, but now hardly any. There's really not that many compromises by going with a laptop. Um, you still have great ports on the MacBook Pros. You get a lot of the same silicon, M2 Max is in a MacBook or in a Mac Studio, which is way faster than what most people need. The only thing you can't get in the MacBook is the ultra level chips, but very few people can justify the ultra chips anyway. Hey, thank you for your support, Caleb. I'm enjoying the trip very much. Thank you for asking. If you want more updates on how the trip is going, check out Tailosive Life. That's where I post all the more personal stuff, but here's the tech stuff. Um, yeah, it's actually 9 in the morning for me. So it's not super late. I know it's late for a lot of you guys, but Burkhardt says they should have put the M2 in the iMac alongside the MacBook Air and 13-inch MacBook Pro. I wonder if it's an inventory thing. The inventory thing is my best guess because if the goal is just to have product consistency across the board, yeah, swapping in an M2 chip would not be difficult at all. It's still a 5 nanometer chip. They already swapped the M2 chip across so many different product lineups. Maybe it's because of the release schedule they have in store for the iMac. I'm not sure. Maybe the M3 iMac is going to be ready late this year. So they figured, let's not drop an M2 iMac right now if we're going to drop an M3 iMac in just a couple months. But I don't know, that would be kind of weird because then M3 chip is most likely going to debut in a MacBook Air, right? Oh, shoot. There goes the bit rate. Come back, internet, come back. It's leaving me. Give it a second to recover here. Okay, sorry. I don't know if you guys can see it, but yeah, the bit rate took a big dive. So I think the internet here is like a little 4G hotspot thing, so it's not the fastest in the world. The download, in fact, really sucks. The upload is okay, but anytime I'm trying to watch something or download something, it takes forever. But yeah, anyway, I don't think they would debut a brand new Apple Silicon chip and just leave it to an iMac exclusively. Um, honestly, the M1 still having the M1 chip makes it hard to recommend. I think the chin and the bezels make it hard to recommend. I don't actually think the M1 chip is the problem. M1 chip is still plenty fast, I think, for most people. In fact, what people are supposed to be using their iMac for, like the way Apple pitches the iMac is like, the kitchen Mac. It's good for schools. It's good for the reception desk. They don't really showcase it doing anything intensive processing wise. I don't think the chip really inside of it matters that much. It's just supposed to be the somewhat minimal, clean, so-called pretty. I think it's ugly, but they think it's the pretty um clean desktop iMac if you don't want a tower like a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio because that's ugly. If you care more about looks than you care about performance and ports, then I guess that's what the iMac's for, in which case M1 chip versus M2, not really that different. But the fact that it hasn't been refreshed in so long definitely makes it hard to recommend because I think that design could easily end up looking really, really dated. Um, Joshua's been supporting for 5 months now. I'm 23 tomorrow, by the way. It's probably already tomorrow. So it's your birthday here, Josh. Happy birthday. No one where you are can say happy birthday because it's probably July 2nd there, but it's July 3rd for me. And happy birthday, Josh. Congrats. You're 23 years old. That only happened once. You got to celebrate that. You only turned 23 a single time. Keeping an iMac in a kitchen is weird. Get an iPad. No, no, Caleb. I agree with the first thing you said. I hate the second thing you said. You can get an M1 Air on sale for $800 often, whereas the iMac has rarely gone on sale. Yeah, but that's desktop versus laptop. Like, come on. The people looking for a desktop is not going to be the same. Geez, I'm sorry. I'm so pixelated. I know. The bit rate is taking a huge dive. Should I turn off Wi-Fi on other devices? I didn't bring my iPad, by the way. So I know that's not the problem. My iPad did not accompany me on this journey. Okay, the Wi-Fi is off on my phone, so my phone is getting nothing out here. Hopefully that helps it recover. But yeah, there we go. Slowly, slowly, but surely it's recovering. Karen super chatted, what are y'all excited about? M2. My MacBook has M7. Does you mean your iPhone? The iPhone 5S, I think, has the M7 chip. That's not a lie. Legitimately, it's Apple Silicon branded M7. It's a motion coprocessor, but that's literally what it's called. It's the M7. That iMac Pro is a waste of space. I kind of agree. My iMac Pro is in a weird space where I spent a lot of money on it back in 2017 when it came out. And for the record, I am still very, very happy with that purchase. That Mac carried the Tailosive network for 5 years, technically. Oh no, I switched to the MacBook in 2021. So about 4 years. That iMac Pro just ran the network and I used it for streaming. I used it for editing. And it did great. It had a great sound system, fantastic display, way better cooling system than the regular iMacs, which matters for me when I do live streaming like this. I don't want the fans sounding like a 747 every time I do something. So the cooling system is great. The speaker system on the iMac Pro still sounds about the same as a full-size HomePod. Um, oh yeah, the 12-inch MacBook had a Core M7, but that was Intel. That was Intel. Intel doesn't exist in my head. That doesn't count. I've been thinking of a monitor upgrade. iMac isn't a part of it. Yeah, that's probably why there's not that much of an emphasis or a push for Apple to get the iMacs working properly, because it makes so much more sense to just buy a MacBook and an external monitor, which now that the studio display, is $1,700, Apple found a way for us to all buy basically iMacs, but they don't have to put Intel computers in them anymore. Now they can just throw an A13 chip in there and make you buy a MacBook and a monitor, which combined is probably closer to 3 grand. And they're like, yeah, even better. Now you got the laptop for the mobile stuff, and when you want it at your desk, you can plug it into an extra monitor. Only reason I can't get behind that is because of what I'm doing right now. When I take these long trips, then no, I'm not going to be home in the next couple days, by the way. I've still got several more weeks. Actually, I think a month from now. What day is today? Yeah, a month from now, I'm still not going to be home. So when I take these multi-month long trips, I'm not going to be able to take my monitor with me. Um, my monitor's just going to be sitting at home doing nothing. So I can't really justify getting a monitor, although I would definitely like one. I would appreciate having a larger workspace on my screen. Maybe spatial computing could be the answer. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like the 24-inch iMac came out a little bit later, right? They didn't unveil that with the M1 chip. In fact, it was way later, wasn't it? It was like 2020 when the it was November of 2020 when the M1 chip debuted and they launched the Air, the Pro, and the Mini. But then it wasn't until April, right? It wasn't until April of 2021 that the iMac came out. So I feel like the iMac is always getting, second, uh, what do you call it? Seconds, hand-me-down chips. It never gets the first chip. I might take a little bit of a stance here that you might not agree with me on, which might be kind of fun. Let me entertain an idea for you guys because I love speculation. If you don't like speculation, leave the channel because that's pretty much all we do here. Here's my pitch. iMac, 24-inch iMac, um, still has the M1 chip, right? It's dated. We've all been saying for a while, why doesn't it have the M2 chip? It's kind of weird. Maybe the reasoning for it is that, okay, it needs, we're so close to the launch of the M3. Why drop it with the M2 if the M3 is just around the corner? Okay, fair enough. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Karen. This says, I miss the Intel Inside stickers on my laptops. I don't believe you for 1 second. I don't think your name's really Karen either. But for the sake of this argument and another factor, another elephant in the room, there'll be more elephants on Tailosive Life shortly, so stay tuned for that. But the other elephant in the room, 15-inch MacBook Air, just dropped, right? Brand new MacBook. We've never had a 15-inch MacBook Air before. But unfortunately, as much as a lot of you guys love it, I think it's not that great. Like it's kind of overrated. Um, it's a decent value. I just think it's too close in price to the 14-inch, 16-inch MacBook Pros anyway. But the awkward portion is TSMC has told us that the 3 nanometer chips are going to be ready to go in the second half of 2023. That's now. We're officially in the second half of 2023, which means M3 chips are most likely going to be ready later this quarter. Yeah, September. That's Q3. Or if not, then Q4. If M3 chips are ready later this quarter, does it make sense for Apple to drop an M3 MacBook Air just a couple of months after they drop the 15-inch MacBook Air? I don't know, man. That's going to be kind of awkward for all the people, especially some of you suckers out there that were like, I need 16 gigs of RAM and I need 2 terabytes of storage with my 15-inch MacBook Air. Okay, you should have bought a MacBook Pro, but I need my thin MacBook. I don't want the Pro. I want less ports and I want to spend over 2 grand and I want a really thin design language because these Pros are just too heavy, right? Skill issue. You guys need to subscribe to Fitness Plus and get some beef your muscles before you go complaining about MacBook weight for a second here. Golly, there's a difference of like a pound. Anyway, you spent several $1,000s on your 15-inch MacBook Airs. You really think they're going to drop an M3 MacBook Air just like 4 or 5 months later? Eh, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of awkward to me. That's kind of bizarre for them to drop. So, for the sake of keeping this on topic with the title and the stream, and the fact that the iMac does deserve love, I agree. Like, sure, there's less people buying desktops these days because more people are buying laptops. But what I was thinking just earlier, I was going to mention it, is that okay, sure, it's a little bit redundant. Yeah, okay. We're going to have 3 towers and then we're going to have 2 different sized iMacs for people who want an all-in-one computer that's also powerful, that also has ports and a good display. But you know what also is redundant? All of the MacBooks. You guys realize right now we have in the current Apple Store lineup, we have 3 different versions of a 13-inch MacBook. 3 different 13-inch MacBooks. And then we have a 14-inch MacBook, a 15-inch MacBook, and a 16-inch MacBook. There's there's freaking like 5, 6 different MacBooks all at the same time. So if you can be redundant there, I see no reason why you can't be redundant with the Mac lineup. And okay, look, especially in this Tim Cook era of recycling designs and keeping designs around. Sure, it'll be a little bit awkward. It'll take a little bit of engineering and design expertise to give us a brand new 32-inch iMac per se. The concept artwork in the thumbnail of this stream, I linked it in the description, by the way. It's from Apple Insider. Okay, you need to update the iMac design language a little bit. That's fine. But once you do it, you can basically keep it around for a while. You can basically stick with that design, just like how you stuck with the Mac Mini design for 10 years now. Same with the Mac Pro. We've had the same one since 2019. Now they put the M2 Ultra in it. They still haven't changed it. You know, you pick your design, but then after that, it's just a matter of swapping out chips, really. It's just a matter of like, okay, M3 chip is now dated, put in the M4 or put in the M5. Okay, M5 is now dated, put in the M6. But you can keep the design language the same. This isn't something that needs to be updated that frequently. So you just update it once and you call it a day. And for the sake of the iMac deserving some love and the fact that the 15-inch MacBook Air just came out and Apple probably doesn't want to refresh it too quickly, all of this to say, I want to come back to the idea M3 chip should debut in the iMac. You might disagree with me on that. I don't really care, but that's my pitch. All right. I mean, 3 nanometer chips will probably first debut in the iPhone 15 series, to be fair. The 15 Pro, to be precise, because regular iPhone 15 and 15 Plus are probably going to get the A16, not the A17 chip. So the first 3 nanometer chips that Apple releases will probably be the iPhone 15 Pro and iPhone 15 Pro Max. They'll get the A17 chip. But for the Max with the M3 chip, because the 15-inch MacBook Air just dropped, I would say we delay the M3 MacBook Air a little bit. Okay? Like let's push off the next MacBook Air a little bit because it just got updated with the larger size, and let's start with an M3 iMac. And that can come along with a 32-inch iMac as well that's rocking, I don't know, maybe M3 Pro, at least M3, maybe depending on how fast the regular M3 chip is, maybe you don't need an M3 Pro yet. Um, but yeah, that's my idea. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Debuting a brand new Apple Silicon chip in an iMac instead of a MacBook. How's that? Is that crazy? Um, let's see. Rejoice has got to do a couple reps with the iPads to be able to use the 16-inch MacBook Pro. There you go. I don't do reps, but I do not find the MacBook Pro 16-inch to be heavy at all. Ramal Media, thank you for the super chat. Been a fan since the 2016 Greenwall Attic days. Do you think Apple will update the studio display soon? It's funny you mentioned that because Mark Gurman literally like just dropped a report saying that they have multiple new monitors in testing. One that he mentioned had a really good idea that I've been suggesting for a while. I don't think you need new hardware for this actually. Um, but one thing he suggested was that they're definitely working on updating the Pro display because that hasn't been touched since 2019. It's kind of dated. There's no Apple Silicon inside of it. It has less dimming zones than a MacBook does. I think actually the bigger issue with the Pro display isn't the panel itself, it's just the IO. If you try to go any higher, like if you try to go 7K or if you try to go ProMotion with it, then you're limited by what Thunderbolt can do. So you have to start shipping. Either the monitor has to rely on HDMI 2.1, in which case you kind of destroy the whole clean one cable setup that Apple loves with their MacBooks. You know, you just plug in one cable and that can do power and data and give you more ports and everything. So maybe they're working on a new Pro display, but they're waiting for like Thunderbolt 5 or whatever to be able to handle everything they want to do, or they're going to make it work over some custom MagSafe 4 cable or something. Um, but when it comes to the studio display, Mark Gurman just dropped this report that they're working on one that could do like smart TV functionality, or basically I think what he's trying to say is tvOS. So it can act as a Mac monitor, but it can also turn into a little TV if you needed to. Um, which I think the studio display could do right now. It has an A13 chip on the inside. We know for a fact that tvOS can run on an A13 chip. Um, Micah says, "Isn't M1 enough for the iMac?" Yeah, it's fine. The fact that it's M1 isn't the problem, but you could say that with so many things. Isn't M1 enough for the iPad? They still gave it the M2 chip. It's hilarious to me that the iPad Pro gets the M2 chip, but the iMac doesn't. iMac could take advantage of the M2 chip a lot more than the iPad can. The iMac actually has fans on the inside. Um, I was saying today the base M1 chip still beats newer Windows laptops. Yeah, I agree. It's not the problem. It's just that it's not that the iMac is too slow. It's just not been touched in a long time, and there's some obvious things about it they can fix, like the bezels, like the chin, and varying size options as well for people who want bigger than 24 inches. Um, so thank you for the super chat, Ramal, but I don't have a concrete timeline for you. I don't think they're going to update it terribly soon, but perhaps in the next year or two, I think we might get a studio display upgrade, sure. Um, Burkhart says he's happy with his M2 14-inch Pro since this won't be refreshed for around a year. Probably. They probably are going to get OLED in the next update. That's my prediction. M1 Pro is a pretty future-proof chip. Honestly, all of the M series of Apple Silicon chips are pretty solid so far. Like, I don't think they're relatively that old yet. The M1 chip is not even 3 years old yet. And for any amount of Apple Silicon, 3 years is not that long. I'm using a iPhone SE, a 13 chip that's over 3 years old now, and it's still plenty fast for what you'd need a phone to do. So Apple Silicon is not going to get dated that quickly, especially when we rarely hit the limits of our silicon because they've gotten so fast. If you're doing intensive video editing or audio engineering, you have to get pretty niche and pretty high end with it before it's like, oh, this isn't fast enough anymore. So either put the logo back on the chin or remove it. I don't want the logo back on the chin. That's what iMacs looked like for a decade. We just want to go back to that? No, like we got rid of it for a reason. Um, Even if they make an M3 iMac, would you recommend the M1? You would recommend the M1 one, won't you? No, I will never recommend the M1 iMac because I think it's hideous. That's really the only justification for that Mac. The ports aren't very good. You can get a much cheaper Mac Mini with an M1 chip and an external monitor that will look and work great. So the only justification against that argument, if your argument is, well, I don't want a Mac Mini and an external monitor because that's uglier and that's not as pretty, I don't think the M1 iMac is pretty. And you're welcome to disagree with me. That's all subjective, looks and preferences, what you prefer. But I'm sorry, no matter how many different angles I look at it, I think the M1 iMac is ugly. I think it should go without saying. Maybe I should make myself more clear. I don't want the M3 iMac to look the same. I also want them to update the design language so that it doesn't look so hideous. If they don't update the design language, I'm still not going to recommend it. But just for a product line consistency sake, yeah, I agree that the chip should be better. Um, will the M3 iPad Pro get a redesign since it's been the same for 5 years now? No, I don't subscribe to that idea that Apple is locked into these like we have to redesign it every X number of years. Um, I think if there's a design that works, that there's not much to improve on, they'll stick with it and they'll keep using it for well over 5 years if they want to, like the Mac Mini or like the Touch Bar MacBook Pro. That's basically a 2016 MacBook design. They tweaked it a little bit with the keyboard, but for the most part, they've been shipping that style of MacBook Pro with the slightly tapered edges and the two USB-C ports on one side and the touch bar. That's been around since 2016. That's a 6-year-old Mac design as far as I'm concerned. And the iPad 9, that design has been around since 2017. That's like a 6-year-old design. They tweak it a little bit, slightly bigger, slightly thinner bezels, but it's still non-laminated and it still has a home button and everything. So I don't believe that every 5 years or however long you think, okay, we have to update it now because it's been so ever long. I don't think so. They might switch it to OLED, but I don't think that necessarily means they have to change the whole design language for it. Um, why does the iMac exist when the Mac Mini is right there for $599? Well, a lot of people think that way, but I think the only justification for the iMac is people who prefer the cleaner desktop setup, people who want it to look nice, which is why I fundamentally don't like the 24-inch iMac, is because I'm for the record, I'm not trying to say there's a fault in that argument. If you want your desktop to look more minimal and look more clean, I'm all there with you. I bought the iMac Pro. I still believe that's the best looking iMac ever made. It's a beautiful machine And I'm all in favor of buying cleaner, nicer looking Macs for your setup. And I'm even in favor. I'll pay a premium for a machine if it makes my setup look cleaner and better. But I just don't think it looks good. I think it looks hideous. And people disagree with me, and that's fine. You're wrong, but if it didn't have white bezels, it would look nice. It would look the way iMacs looked for 10 years. We have the technology now. I think there's nothing wrong with making something that looks like the Pro Display. Just make it look like the Pro Display XDR. It just happens to run Mac OS. You don't need a chin. Don't tell me you need a chin for the Mac to work properly. That's not true. You can make iPhones without chins. You can make iPads with M2 chips and no fans and batteries with no chins. You don't need a chin. It's completely a design choice on their part to keep the chin, and I think that's unnecessary. Make it all black, thin bezels. Again, just studio display. We had a Mac Mini dev kit with the A12Z chip. They ran Mac OS on an A12Z chip. The studio display has an A13 chip. It's totally possible for them to run Mac OS on the existing monitor. It wouldn't be very fast. It wouldn't be as good as an M1 chip, but you could do it. It's physically possible. So there's absolutely a way you could build a Pro Display XDR looking thing that happens to run Mac OS. Just throw an M3 chip in a studio display is essentially what I'm asking. It doesn't need to be some giant overhaul redesign thing. And I think a lot of people would buy it. Um, if it didn't have the white bezels, it would look nice. Yeah, I know what they're trying to do. They were going for the whole, well, it needs to blend in with the drywall and it needs to blend. But it's a flawed premise because that's not why people buy Macs anymore. Like the concept of I just need a computer for the office that stays there, um, but I'm just using it for light tasks. It's not for pros, it's not for work or anything. It's just for like accessing the internet. That's a dated premise. Like we did that back in the 90s, but we don't do that anymore when we have phones and tablets and laptops and like people who want a desktop are more likely to care about how good is this at getting work done, doing some more professional workflows. And there's still people that do audio engineering or software writing or video editing that are doing intensive workflows that care about aesthetics, that care about minimalism and simplistic design. That's an overlap. That's what a lot of the Mac market was. That's probably why a lot of people buy the studio display is because they're a professional and they need to get work done, but they want something clean and aesthetically pleasing. So the studio display plus Mac Studio kind of fits that iMac niche. But honestly, what I think the iMac, like larger size, like an iMac Pro or a 32-inch iMac, whatever you want to call it, what that market could kind of, what you could kind of pitch that towards, in my opinion, is this is what could fill the gap that the Pro Display XDR cannot fill. The bigger problem, sorry, oh, thank you, Wheelbase Knowles for the super chat. I miss how much Steve Jobs did it with looks. He was definitely a design guy for sure, but I think there's other aspects that Steve prioritized that probably annoyed a lot of people. Like Steve didn't care if they had less options and less sizes. He just wanted a simplistic, minimalistic lineup. Some people like that, but in the Steve Jobs era, you probably wouldn't have gotten things like the iPhone SE. You probably wouldn't get the cheaper size options. You wouldn't get your um, iPhone 12, 12 mini, 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max. You wouldn't get that lineup. It would just be like one size, maybe two. He would keep it really, really clean, very simple, and very minimal. And sometimes he'd probably be more in favor of the butterfly keyboard. He'd all be in favor. How thin can we get this? How thin? How lightweight? Even if it comes at the cost of performance, battery life, reliability, we'll take that hit for the sake of thin and light, which to a point I don't think actually helps all that much. But anyway, there is a way to make a display that is 120 hertz, 8K, whatever, and mini LED and everything. The problem is when you try to get it to plug in and interact with something. Thunderbolt 4 can't handle that amount of frame rate and that amount of resolution. Um, and if you want to do it through HDMI 2.1, now you have to power the MacBook through one thing and power the monitor through another, it gets a little messy and it gets a little less simplistic, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of Apple designing it their particular way. But if you do it as an iMac, you are not limited to Thunderbolt. You are not limited to HDMI's capabilities because then the monitor that the computer is rocking can be straight hardwired into the logic board. So you can have much higher throughput, much higher bandwidth. This is actually how Apple was able to start shipping 5K iMacs long before there were 5K external monitors. If you go back and remember when they first unveiled that, it kind of blew people's mind because they were like, wait, we're just now seeing 4K monitors come out on the market, and Apple's coming out with a 5K iMac. How are they able to do that? Well, it was because the monitor inside that iMac was directly soldered in to the logic board. I don't know if solder is the right word, but it was directly connected. It didn't have to rely on some external cable. It wasn't a Thunderbolt throughput thing. So if you could make a 32-inch iMac that's mini LED, super high resolution, and ProMotion, you'd probably have a canvas, a great monitor setup, and a really powerful computer in there that you couldn't get through an external monitor paired with a Mac Pro. So it would have its own set of advantages and exclusives that you wouldn't be able to find outside of the iMac realm. Um, let's see. I would definitely buy it because the studio display catches my eye anytime I'm at either Best Buy or the Apple Store. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the look of it too. I just, I can't take it with me. MacBook Pro 14 inch is far better than any Intel Mac and was designed for on function over form. Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, The newer MacBook designs are still pretty impressive, though. I like where they're at right now. I think it's a great mesh of functionality and aesthetics. Like, I think they're beautiful and they're functional. And honestly, I struggle to foresee any reason I'll be upgrading my MacBook Pro unless it just dies or gets stolen or destroyed somehow. Like, if something goes wrong with it, I would not buy a new one. I would get another M1 Pro MacBook from 2021. Um, yeah, I'm gonna miss Independence Day, Lazito. I will not be in the United States for Independence Day. Sorry. I'll get to miss all the gunfire. Let's see. What would they take away to make it cheaper, and would it be worth it? Wait, take away from what? Do you think Apple should make a display cheaper than the studio display? Oh, is that what you're asking about? Um, there's geese outside screaming away. Um, I think. Probably not, just because honestly, the studio display in Apple's world is probably the cheapest possible thing they would make. Yeah, like Rejoice brought up exactly my point. There's not much you can take away from that monitor that would make it much cheaper. Um, they're probably just going to tell you to buy a third party monitor if you want cheaper, but essentially they took the 5K panels that they were using in the iMac and the LG Ultrafine and they just retrofitted that to fit in the studio display. So it's a really, really old display technology. It's not it's the same kind of displays they were manufacturing back in 2014. It's that LG 5K panel. So they retrofitted it into a somewhat clean enclosure. I don't know how you could make it cheaper, like, oh, okay, take out the webcam or make the speakers worse or something, but that's not really the expensive part of the monitor. It's the enclosure and the panel, and those are not going to be compromised on with a lower end monitor. So I don't think should they is a different discussion. I mean, should is a funny word, like as in someone ought to do that, but they probably won't. I just don't think financially there's a motivation to. Um, like, should we spend extra time and engineering work on making a monitor that will make us less money? Probably not. But over time, you'll probably be able to pick up studio displays refurbished and secondhand for $1,200 and then maybe under $1,000 after a year goes by. Um, thank you, Wheelbase, for the super chat. Sorry to ask, but should I, when I buy, I wait. Try to read these before you send them. Should I get an M1 Mac Mini or an M1 MacBook Air as I don't care for it being portable? Well, I think you just answered your own question, Wheelbase. If you don't care about it being portable, the M1 Mac Mini is much cheaper. You can get really decent monitors these days, like 1080p. I wouldn't even mess around with, but you can get 1440p or 4K monitors on Amazon for just a couple $100. Couple, and that'll probably ship with an HDMI cable. Pair it with your Mac Mini, you'll probably get it cheaper than a MacBook Air. Um, they've improved the color accuracy, black levels, and brightness since then. Only thing that they've kept going is the resolution and size. Yeah, but I think it's the same partnership. Like, yeah, they improved that panel, but it's the same like factory line, it's the same assembly line as more advanced um like you said, black level color accuracy things improved since then, but it's applying to the same assembly line. Like they didn't have to go with a different supplier like they did for the Pro Display XDR, redesign everything fundamentally. This is just like incremental, just like, okay, slightly better this, slightly improved that. In my opinion, I think that's something the supplier probably came up with and Apple was just like, sure, we'll take it. I don't think that was necessarily active development on Apple's part. Um, I hope next year's Apple Watch goes to 49 or 50 millimeter. Well, I just hope the watch bands don't go away. How long has the studio display been out? I feel like it's been at least 2 years now. I don't think it's quite 2 years. Didn't it come? I thought it came out in the spring 22 event. So it's over a year, but not quite 2 years. I use my TV for my monitor for my Mac Mini. There you go. You can get really big TVs for cheap now, too. What about an updated 7K to 8K Pro Display XDR? Like, if iMac Pro doesn't make it, at least a better display. No, I think you're getting it completely wrong, G4 Prial. It's actually harder to do a 7K, 8K Pro display. Doing it as an iMac Pro would be easier because you wouldn't be limited by the speeds of Thunderbolt or HDMI. Right now, Apple probably could. I bet the displays are out there. I know that Dell or someone or there's probably display manufacturers that can make a 7K panel and an 8K panel, even at 120 hertz. That probably exists. But how do you connect it to the Mac Pro? I guess maybe through HDMI 2.1, but not through Thunderbolt, which means that how you connect it to external monitors is going to be a lot more limited. Now, only Macs with the HDMI 2.1 port can connect to it, and that doesn't cover their power needs. So, and how much data can that do? So, can you actually have additional ports added on to that? So, you're going to be completely limited by the cables that you're plugging into that monitor with. That's the limiting factor. Whereas if you do the iMac, you can bypass that and just have it routed straight to the logic board. So I think actually doing an iMac Pro with a high res display, high refresh rate would be easier than doing the external monitor. Would I get an Apple Silicon iMac Pro if they ever bring it back? No, I don't. I don't have any need for that. Dude, I was just saying earlier, Jonathan, I can't justify getting an external monitor because of how much time I spend away from home now. Like when I bought the iMac Pro, I wasn't traveling that much. You know, it's a different time in my life. I wasn't married, and also I was a lot more financially, what do you call it? Financially restrictive. Like I didn't go into debt or anything, but I was basically living more paycheck to paycheck per se. Not exactly paycheck to paycheck, but I had some money, but I was more inclined to like I need to keep working. I can't take too much time away from work, and my business overhead was way higher because you know, I had just moved out of my parents' house. I was renting month to month, so I couldn't really be that cautious or careful with like sorry, I couldn't be that extravagant with like, oh, I'm going to take trips here, I'm going to go over here. Now, you know, we have a paid off house and our expenses are much lower. I'm not too worried about if the videos take a hit because I'm on a trip or I end up being in some place without good internet for a while. Doesn't really make me nervous anymore because we've got savings and we're a lot more financially secure now. But back then, I was working in that office and I wasn't leaving that office for quite some time. So I was like, I just need something fast that can edit my videos quickly. And it's okay if it's stationary. And at that time, the laptops weren't as fast anyway. So I wanted a desktop and the iMac Pro got the job done. Now I can get really fast performance out of my MacBook Pro. There's not that much of an advantage by going with a desktop. And I'm traveling a lot more because I'm married and I've got family overseas that I'm visiting more frequently. And since then, my parents have moved away. I used to live somewhat close to my parents. Now my parents moved out of state, so I'm visiting them. And it's not just my parents, it's also my siblings and my nieces and nephews and everything. So I've got family that I'm traveling to see all around the world now. And as everybody kind of moved in different directions, I was like, okay, I'm either gonna hardly ever see my family, or I'm gonna be the kind of guy traveling on the go and working on the go pretty frequently. And I decided I want to travel, I want to visit family, and I would need to get work done. So I need a laptop again. And thank God at that time where that point in life transitioned, Apple started making super duper fast laptops that were faster than my desktop. So now I can't even justify an external monitor because of how much it would cost and how much of the year it would just sit there doing nothing. And now I'm honestly more on the fence about, would Apple Vision Pro be a good external monitor solution for my travel? Because at the same time, Vision Pro is not super portable. It's more portable than a monitor, but it's still this kind of big headset that Apple hasn't showed us the case for it. Is there a travel case that you're supposed to be able to pack it, or do you just, in that naked state, do I just throw it in my backpack? It's like $3,500 piece of equipment that is stuffed in there with your clothes and your toothbrush and everything, and now I got to worry about like water bottles or shampoo or something leaking into the micro OLED. Like I don't know. I would want a travel case or something. And it's a lot of money, obviously. An external monitor would be way cheaper. Um, but I just wouldn't get to utilize it a big chunk out of the year. My TV is 55 inches, but that stays at home, so that doesn't help anything. Or is it 50? I can't remember. It's not 60, but it's not 40. It's either 50 or 55. I can't remember. Um, Thank you for your support, Michael Lucido, by the way. And thank you, Alex H, for the super chat. Oh, I'm gonna do a video on that, Alex. So that's spoiler alert, that's my next tech video. I have a lot of thoughts on it. Um, I think it's kind of funny that Goldman Sachs wants out on the deal. Um, but ultimately, I'm very, very curious, but also just mildly excited for what an Apple Card Amex partnership would look like. So um, Borgranta says, you sound like you need the Vision Pro for your use case. No, I wouldn't use the word need. I definitely don't need it, because what I've proven on these trips is that I can get the job done. I've been making actually quite a few videos on this trip. There's downtime and there's time where we're between places that we're traveling and visiting, or I'm on layover. And there's definitely time where I have a window open to be like, okay, I can get some work done. I can either film a video right now, or I can edit a video later, or I'll film a bunch of videos right now and then edit them all later when we have more downtime. So I can work with the 16-inch display. It would be more fun to work with a bigger monitor if I had one, but I can get by with 16-inch. So it's definitely more of a want of like, how helpful will this be, but how much extra headache is it going to be? For one, it's a $3,500 headache, which is like, um, but on top of that, 2-hour battery life. There's often times where I'm editing and I'm not by a wall outlet. I'm away from power, which is where the 16-inch MacBook Pro is very, very helpful because it has a big old battery in here. Basically, the biggest possible legal battery I could pack with me. And I know I've seen some people claim otherwise, and I don't think they know what they're talking about, but I don't believe you can power your Vision Pro from the MacBook. Like, I know that there's a little USB-C port that plugs into the battery bank, but Apple hasn't exactly told us what the power consumption is of Vision Pro. I'm willing to bet, I could be wrong, but I think it's somewhere in the 30 to 50 watt realm when you think about it. It's an M2 and an R1 chip and two very bright, very high resolution micro OLED panels, all displaying and these cameras. Think about how much your battery life drains when you're using your camera. Now imagine you have like 12 cameras and LiDAR. Guys, think about it for a second. When you're using your iPhone, when you do those AR demos, anytime you do an AR thing with your iPhone, like when Apple announces a keynote and you look at the little sneak peek window and everything, or if you want to look at an AR object on the Apple Store and paste it around you, every time you do that, your phone gets really, really hot. Vision Pro is going to be doing that like constantly. It'll be like constantly using LiDAR and cameras, um, and those displays and all that silicon powering it at the same time. I don't think it's like a little 18-watt power consumption thing, which is, I believe, the max power output of the USB-C ports on the MacBook. I believe those max out at around 18 or 20 watts. So I don't think you can just plug in your Vision Pro cable to the MacBook and now it'll power it. I think it needs either that battery bank, which only lasts 2 hours, or you got to plug it into the wall, which only lasts all day, right? All day battery life. And there's certain situations where I won't have access to power. So I'm just trying to warn you guys, I'm not like completely sold on buying the first generation of Vision Pro. I'm excited for the future implementations of Vision OS. Like, I think there's a lot of directions it can go that are exciting. I'm more excited for Vision OS than anything else at Apple right now because it's so flawed, because there's so many problems with it. Um, Everything else Apple makes is not that interesting for me to talk about because it's all kind of peaked. It's all kind of mature. It's all just a debate about like, okay, M3 chip faster than M2 chip, M4 chip faster than M3 chip, M5 chip faster than. It's all the same. It's all just like marginal improvements. Same thing with iPhones. All the cameras are great. The battery life's great. The displays are great. It's all great. It's all fine. And we're just desperately every year trying to think of, okay, how do we make this interesting? Action button. I guess we remove the mute switch. And even with USB-C and stuff, I'm excited for that because I just believe in one port for everything. I love USB-C, but I'm not buying it because I mostly use Qi charging on my phone. So like I agree if you're going to have a port, it should be USB-C, but it's not a reason to upgrade for me. It doesn't make a huge impact. I'm using an iPhone SE2 and getting by just fine, honestly. I've been doing all kinds of vlogging, surprisingly good camera on the iPhone SE, despite being like the worst camera Apple sells probably in the iPhone lineup at least. And I've been doing all kinds of vlogging over on Tailosive Life with the SE2, and it's a decent camera for a single camera setup. It's not bad at all, and they're water resistant. You know, the camera's great, the displays are fine, the app store is nice. Every year we're just like, okay, now what? Now what can we do? I don't know, like uh, titanium. Like we're just desperate for any kind of meaningful upgrade every year, and we can barely think of anything every year. Apple can barely think of anything. It's always like action mode. Ooh. How many of you are using action mode with your iPhone 14? Like, come on. Um, and then when it comes to Apple Watches, I feel the same way. Like I already kind of feel like I went too far with my Series 7. It's beautiful. I love the Series 7 display. I still admire it, and I'm testing watchOS 10. I'll probably do an update video on that here in a couple weeks. But it's fantastic. The battery lasts all day for me. It has a ton of health data, gives you heart rate data, can do an ECG, it can do sleep tracking, it works in water. It's amazing. And every year I'm just like, what do we what do we do with this? Like, I guess make the battery bigger, another color option, another watch band. Everything else at Apple is so peaked and mature. I'm just like, what do we do with this? I guess we try to justify it being interesting, but ultimately it's not that interesting. Vision OS has all of this potential, all of these software use cases I can think of like, oh, they could change this, they could change this. But what's preventing it all? The hardware. The hardware is not that great. I agree. The first generation Vision Pro, you probably shouldn't buy it. It's not a good deal. It's not that useful. It probably isn't worth it. But I think a lot of similar things were said about the original iPhone, the original iPad, the original Apple Watch. All of these things were not that great. I mean, they were state of the art at the time, and they had some unique exclusive advantages compared to other tech at that time. But just a couple generations later, we look back at them and go, "Oh yeah, those were awful. That was terrible." So it's very easy, I think, to just get obsessed with the first generation and say, "Well, because the first generation product isn't good, the whole product line is crap." When that's not the case. Apps took forever to open on the first Apple Watch, and the first iPhone didn't even have 3G connectivity. It didn't have a front-facing camera, didn't have an app store, didn't have multitasking. you could only use it with AT&T, and it was very expensive. It was much more expensive than most phones at that time. So it's totally a parallel in my opinion. A lot of people disagree. They're like, no, 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 iPhone's not the same thing at all. I think it's totally the same thing. It's a different segment, but it's the exact same reaction from the public. Apple has a vision, literally. Apple has a vision of the future that most of the public doesn't see. And they're going to push for it. And the first generation hardware is very expensive, very flawed. But there's all these use cases that I am visualizing that could open up as the hardware gets better with time. So I'm very excited for Vision OS and the future of that product segment, but I'm not too obsessed with the first generation. I don't think people should focus too much on that. I think Apple, especially when they introduce a brand new operating system, like a brand new platform, this isn't like AirPower or MagSafe or something. It's not like one accessory. This is a standalone product with a standalone operating system. And whenever they introduce one of those, they stick to it for a while. They stick to it for a long time usually. Um, and they try to explore and figure out as many possible use cases for it and how to justify it and how to make it compelling and interesting for people, how to make them enjoy it. Vision Pro, I feel like gives a lot of people a reason to go check out an Apple store again. Before Vision Pro, I had kind of lost a lot of any hype or interest in ever checking out an Apple store. I mean, I checked one out in the Philippines because I'd never been to one in the Philippines and it wasn't really an Apple store. But I was just like, hey, I'm outside of the country. And last time I was in the Philippines, there was like no Apple products, there was no iPhones, definitely no Apple resellers, that kind of thing. Um, so I was like, hey, they have one now. This is kind of cool. I wanted to check out the prices and see if their product offerings were the same or different. That was more just like a, you know, foreign country experience. But if I'm in a mall in America, I don't go to the Apple store anymore. When I was a kid, I loved going to the Apple store. I wanted to check out everything. Let me look at that. Let me look at that. I want to play with this. I want to see that. What is it like to hold this? Now, I walk right by it. I don't even care anymore. It's like, oh, great. An iPhone 14. Wonderful. It's yellow. That's fun. Ooh, a monitor. Okay, great. Like, I lost all interest. Maybe it's because of my line of work. Maybe it's because of YouTube and I just talk about it so much that I've lost interest. But now, even though it's expensive and I don't think that many people will buy the first generation, again, I don't think it's that important. But there's a reason to let me go check something out. I might want to walk in an Apple store now and try on a Vision Pro headset. And I think a lot of people might now because, oh, this is something you have to experience, not look at, but look through. What is it like to wear that? That I think might bring a lot more people to Apple stores than you know yellow iPhone or new monitor, that kind of thing. Um, James, why are we deleting? Oh, he was spamming. Sorry, Tyler. I'll address that. Um, I'll address that later, but please don't spam comments. That short was pretty well produced. I hope it props up. It's fine. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. But it was one of those videos that I was like, well, this is kind of tech related. Like I wanted to check out an Apple store in the Philippines, but there wasn't that much to say. So anytime I'm like, I don't have much to say on this, but it was kind of cool that I got to check it out. I don't have a lot of ideas for shorts. I wish I could just do all my tech videos as shorts, but the problem is I have way too many thoughts on most subjects. Anytime we get talking about something, I'm like, oh, you got to talk about this. But then if you take it from that angle or this, you can expand more on that or speculate on this subject. That's just how my brain works. That's why I'm more of a live stream guy. I love live streaming. I'm sorry I haven't been able to stream much on this trip. The Wi-Fi's been spotty, and of course we're busy. We're traveling and visiting people and family and stuff. But I love live streaming because I can interact with you guys, get your opinions and takes on things in real time, and extrapolate on them. That's just the way my mind works. I've tried to do a lot of shorts for tech stuff, and I just figure out like I can't keep it under 60 seconds. I still struggle to keep it usually under 8 minutes. I try to shoot under 7 or 8 minutes. Is like a good video should be under 7 or 8 minutes. I feel proud of myself if I can get like a 5 or 6 minute video. I'm like, cool. I said my piece, I said what I was thinking, and I kept it concise. But most of the time, I end up going too far. I end up going 10, 12, 15 minutes because there's just too much things for me to talk about. And if I just cut out all of that stuff, cut out the speculation, cut out the opinion, just say the facts, just read the news. I don't feel like I'm providing anything of value. Like I just feel like I'm just reading headlines. If I just read you the rumor and that's it, and I don't speculate on it, or I don't say this part of the rumor doesn't make sense to me, or this part doesn't make sense to me, I don't feel like I provided you anything. I just read a headline and then posted it. That's stupid. So if I come up with something that is like, this is kind of cool, this is kind of nifty, but it's not like super useful, or I not useful, but it's not something I have much to say about, then I'll put it into a short, but usually I don't run into that too often. Um, are you running the beta on your phone? How's it holding up? I am. It's holding up fine. I've still got how do I prove? That's another way to judge how big a update iOS 17 is can you tell by looking at it that it is iOS 17? The AirDrop stuff is the most fun. Um, Yeah, I turned Wi-Fi off. When you're airdropping, it doesn't. I guess that's an easy way I can tell. You get this little whoops, disconnect, please. Don't crash the Wi-Fi. Sometimes my phone won't boot up when it's supposed to. Um, I don't mean I don't shut it all the way off, but sometimes I like lift it and I press the power button and the screen doesn't turn on. Usually it takes 5 or 6 seconds and then it turns on. So it's still a little buggy. I wouldn't say it's like flawless. Whoa, that's weird. I got a voicemail from 4 days ago. Who's calling? Who the heck? Um, where's my? It's spam. Yeah, I don't know who that is. Um, anybody calling from Georgia? That's weird. Especially since YouTube aggressively pushes shorts so much, it feels like that's the only thing they want you to care about. If anything, I prefer really long content that I can leave on in the background. Yeah, I understand there's a time and place for shorts. I'm not trying to say that shorts are useless. Like, for example, um, I've been posting tons of shorts over on Tailosive Life because a lot of the travel stuff I post over there, there's not much to say. I'm just showing you something. Like I checked out, we went to a pool, like a cool water park over in the Philippines. And I just wanted to film some stuff of me like sliding down the slide or playing around in the pool or jumping in or you know or if I got some, it's really great for food. I got some ice cream recently or eating a nice meal with a pretty view. That's really nice. So I just take a little recording of it and then I show the view. There's not much to say. I don't need to describe what I'm doing. I am eating food right now, and there is a pretty view. I don't need to say anything, but I just wanted to capture that moment and share it with others. Here's where I am. Here's what I'm doing. So that's perfect for shorts. It can be vertical. It can be under 60 seconds. A lot of my shorts are under 10 seconds. Just show something real quick and then throw it up online so that people can watch it and see what it's like where you are. So in that case, for a more personal lifestyle channel like Talos of Life, I think shorts are brilliant. That's perfect. And I'm very grateful that they've optimized the algorithm for that. And now that channel's actually getting a lot more views than it got before because, getting down to sit down a 10-minute or 5-minute vlog of your vacation is a bit more of a commitment for people. Not that many people would click on it. But if you're just, hey, here's some cool animals we checked out on our trip, a lot more people are willing to click on that. Or here's some food we tried, some new fruit that we don't get in America that I tried out. So there's a great place for shorts, but in terms of the tech videos that I make and the tech coverage I give, there's not a lot of content that I can bunch into a short, but I tried when I can. Sorry, I know I missed some super chats, um, but uh, Bobby retracted his actually. Sorry, Bobby. Why did he retract all his messages? Um, trying to look. But thank you for the super chat, Bobby. Sorry, I got carried away. Marine X, thank you for the super chat. Would I buy an iMac Pro 2017 1 terabyte SSD, 32 gigs of RAM with a Radeon Pro Vega. I own a 14-inch MacBook Pro. I want this to run a laser and for aesthetics. To run a laser? I don't even know what you mean by that. Um, Generally speaking, no, I would not buy really any Intel Mac today at all. I did a whole video just explaining like why it's so hard to recommend older Macs is because we went through this whole transition. I would much rather, I don't know what you're using it for, but most likely because you're probably not doing video editing with it, I think you'd be just fine with an M1 Mac Mini or an M2 Mac Mini would probably get the job done. I don't know what you mean by running a laser, but I guess you like the aesthetics. Um, I don't know. You didn't give me a price. I'm looking in the chat if you added additional messages, but I guess it depends on the price. Maybe I would say it's a good deal if you can get it for like under $1,000, but most of the time when people are selling iMac Pros, they're over a grand. Um, but whoa, oh my God, James, what the heck? He upgraded his membership to Tailosive Max. Why would you do that, James? Come on, that's unnecessary. You were already a moderator. Jeez, I genuinely hate YouTube Shorts. It's TikTok and on YouTube, and I really hate TikTok. Well, just don't watch them. Luckily, it's an option. You don't have to watch them. Um, let's see. Bobby Wright super chat. It says R1 and vision tracking in other iDevices. I'm trying to think of another device where it would make sense to have the R1. I don't think it really would, to be honest, because the whole point of R1 is that it has to stitch together all of these different camera views and take into account LiDAR. And if you were doing some AR experience on your iPhone, you wouldn't need to stitch together various camera views. Um, Maybe if they started putting multiple angles on the back, like I don't think this is very likely per se, but hypothetically it's possible. But let's say because Apple is bored and they don't know what to do with the iPad hardware, right? Because the iPad OS sucks. So they're like, how do we make the iPad better? I don't know what to do. Okay, hypothetically, what if just like how Vision OS and Vision Pro has like that spatial video recording, and it's able to do that because it has multiple cameras that are like eye distance apart. What if they start putting multiple cameras on the back of your iPad? So there's one camera in one corner, and then they put a different camera in another corner. So now with your iPad, or maybe even your iPhone, you would need a pretty big iPhone to get eye distance apart. But maybe with the Pro iPhones, they start putting cameras in one corner and cameras in the other corner. And now with two cameras that are kind of far apart from each other, you get the parallax effect proper. You can start recording spatial video with your iPhone. Maybe in that case the R1 chip would make sense, but I don't know. It's probably a big power draw. This is really reaching. I don't think that's likely. I'm just saying it's hypothetically possible. People were like, "What if you could record spatial video with your iPhone?" And I was like, it wouldn't work unless you had two lenses that were opposite distance from each other. I think that's the only reason Vision Pro can do spatial video is because of all the cameras it has and that they're at varying distances from each other. The lenses on the iPhone are way too close together. I don't think they could get much spatial data. Even with machine learning and AI and everything, I don't think it could quite get the same effect unless you had lenses separated from each other. I guess these phones can get pretty big. Like even with a phone the size of the SE, you could put one lens here and one lens here, and the lenses would be, close to eye distance apart from each other. With the iPad, you could even put the lenses in portrait orientation apart from each other and start recording spatial video if you care about that kind of thing. But I don't know, it's quite a stretch. Um, James says we know how to make the iPad better, improve iOS and wait 1 or 2 years. That is sad but true. I hate how right you are about that. Um, Jonathan RL says, did you also hide sub counts on that channel too? Wait, what channel? I wish I could hide sub counts. YouTube doesn't let you. What channel? I want to hide sub counts because I think people care too much about them. Um, let's see. Especially since I don't like shorts very much, I use an extension to hide them. Well, there you go. It's an option, If you don't like them, you don't have to watch them. That's what I like. Uh, You have a Tailosive Tech Ultra tier, and one of the perks is regret. Yes. Yeah, there were way too many people signing up for Tailosive Tech Ultra, way more than I intended. Um, I want to be honest and true to the perks that I offered to that, and there was just way too many people signing up for it. So I changed the price for it. For the record, I only changed the price once everybody canceled. So just so we're clear, nobody has Talos of Tech Ultra on the old pricing. Everybody canceled, which I supported and encouraged. I was like, don't do it. It's not worth it. I thought people were just going to sign up for Ultra just for the sake of I want to collab or something. And most of the people signing up for Ultra didn't want to collab. They were just being nice, which is like, okay, I appreciate that, but it also makes me feel bad because now you're sending all this money and not really getting much out of it. So I was like, okay, if most people are signing up for Ultra as a meme, as a gag, then I want it to be kind of like, the expensive, super crazy thing that makes all the other tiers feel more reasonable. It's not meant to be something that several people sign up for, which is what was happening with Talos of Tech Ultra. So I changed the price of it to make it as expensive as YouTube would make it, and I make it as a joke, like, yeah, like don't do it. It's not worth it. How many tiers of subscription are available for the channel? I think there's three, but not many people do them, but they're cheaper. To become a channel member on the EV channel, it's like 99 cents a month, I think. Um, Honestly, I'm completely fine with Apple Reality Pro coming out next year. I think you mean Vision Pro, but it gives me time to get some stuff paid for and save up for one. Yeah, I'm glad too that they gave us time. Yeah, it was $100 before, and now it's $500 because I didn't like how many people were signing up for it. I was like, this is way too obtainable. The goal was to have a perk that like no one signs up for that's just crazy and outlandish. Um, but then everybody kept signing up for it. Like, so I keep a list of everybody that signed up, um, because I said if people support me that high, then they should get verbal shout outs or these kinds of shout outs. But so many people were signing up and didn't want to collab and didn't really care about the shout outs or anything. So I was like, okay, I mean, I appreciate the generosity. I'm grateful for you guys, but there's just a certain amount of okay, you're starting to make me feel bad. We'll do at some point when my schedule's more free. We'll do a collab alpha. I need to find the time for it. Um, I had the Samsung VR device. I used it and then forgot about it. It stayed in a drawer after a few months. Unfortunately, it sounds like a lot of people are having that story. Wheelbase says, will a regular Windows mouse work well with Mac OS? I think it'll work. I don't know if it'll work well, but yes, you can connect a Windows mouse to a Mac. Um, Oh, Marine X posted an update. The iMac Pro is $875. I'm thinking of offering him 800. Seems to be in good working order. Yeah, I guess that's not bad if you don't care too much about software support, because the iMac Pro just barely gets macOS Sonoma, but that's probably going to be what it dies on. So don't expect it for long-term software support, but I don't know what you mean by have it operate a laser. If it's just something that is plugged in to run one program, then I guess that's fine. But you care about the aesthetics, which is kind of weird. I'm like, I just don't understand the use case for this product. Generally, I would say don't buy an Intel Mac anymore, unless it's very, very cheap. But too many YouTubers were calling it Reality Pro before it was announced. I think you mean, oh yeah, they were calling it Reality Pro. I still want to call it Reality Pro half the time. What are your thoughts about the new Grid View and watchOS beta? I'll be honest, I'm rocking watchOS 10 here, and I'm really trying to get used to it. I'm a futurist. When Apple says this is the new way of doing something, I try to force myself to get onto it. I put all the betas on my devices and I test them, and I do my best to adjust with, okay, this is the new version. I gotta adjust. Like, personally, I love the new system settings in macOS. Everybody hated that, and I'm just like, yeah, no, it looks more in line with how my iPhone and iPad look. I was okay with it. I didn't mind it too much. But with the new watchOS 10 redesign, I'm kind of struggling. I'm not getting used to it very quickly, as quick as I would like. So I'm having to start to use my watch differently. I'm trying to force myself to get comfortable with it because I know I can't downgrade. I can't go back to watchOS 9, unfortunately. I'm stuck with watchOS 10, and I'm still I'm still pushing my side button for multitasking. I'm still swiping up to activate Control Center and then it's not there and I'm like, "Oh, wait, that doesn't do what I need it to." So I changed my watch face. I used to have a also, why did they get rid of the before I could swipe through my watch faces just like this, side to side. I don't know if that's a bug or a design decision, but I used to be able to swipe through my watch faces and now I can't. Um, but I used to have a somewhat modular watch face. Where is it? Did I get rid of it? No, it's right here. I used to use this one to keep track of time zones and texts and everything and mail and all that. But what I realized was with that modular watch face, it's very redundant now that you are forced, whenever you swipe up on your watch face, you get this widget view, this updated design. And the widgets are kind of redundant if you already have a modular watch face. So I think so when I watched the Apple event, I realized that their pitch was that, okay, now you swipe up when you want to activate widgets, but that allows your watch face to be more aesthetically pleasing. You don't need a more modular watch face. You can have a more pretty watch face that showcases how pretty your watch display is, and then swipe up when you need those widgets. So I changed it to be more pretty, obviously, with the portrait mode shot. And then when I need those widgets, I swipe up. It takes some getting used to, and I'm trying to adjust to it, but still, I'm not in love with it, honestly. And it's taken longer than I thought to get used to. Um, it was probably supposed to be called Reality Pro with XROS, since in one of the developer sessions they said XROS. There's more than that, even in Xcode, it's referenced as XROS, which is funny. So yeah, they definitely had code names. So I think the XROS leaks were real. It was just they changed it at the last second. I think it was very clear when they ran into a bunch of trademark and patent disputes. Like there was a bunch of companies that were like, "Hey, we own Vision Pro, you can't use that," and Apple was like, "Whoops, sorry," and now they've got to settle all that in court. So I think they either had Vision Pro and Vision OS as the name internally, and they just didn't tell anyone that, even the developers working on it, or at the last second they changed it so that they could surprise people. They wanted it to be something that sounded different so they could say, "Ah, you didn't quite get the leaks, you didn't quite get the rumors," even though we kind of did because there was clearly a lot of evidence that it was called XROS. Having a clock at the top of the widget view is really redundant. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't, I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to mix it up a bit, but yeah, it was confusing. Um, Tyler, when you spam questions, it makes me not want to answer them. I feel like I'm rewarding spam if I answer that now. Um, let's see. I haven't decided if I love WatchOS 10 or not. Maybe it's like a fine wine and it will improve with age. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if they end up changing it back. Like they've already changed what the side button does several times, and they might change it again, to be honest. Marketing always wins. That's right. Um, let's see. Over- But no, I don't hide the sub count. Every other creator. Thank you so much for your membership, Drew. What the heck were you thinking? I guess it's that reverse psychology, right? Um, yeah, if you get Tailosive Tech Ultra, you will absolutely regret it. I I guarantee you that. Um, let's see. Okay, well, before we mute Tyler, he kept asking, what should people do if they don't want to watch ads, but they live in a country that doesn't support YouTube Premium? For one, I don't think there's too many of those in the first place. And it sucks. I agree that's a frustrating situation, but I just don't think it justifies ad block. All right, that's all. But every time we get talking about ad block, everybody gets all fussy, and I honestly I get triggered very easily because it annoys me how people just think that ads as a form of payment isn't a thing. Like everything should just be free and there shouldn't be a form of payment for it. Like it's frustrating. I acknowledge that, but I don't think that justifies theft, essentially. Um, I don't know what else will entice me to upgrade after USB-C. I'm kind of in the same boat except with the SE. Like as a tool, this phone is wonderful. Like as a media consumption device, yeah, this display kind of sucks and I don't like the home button and the big bezels. But just as a tool to get work done, iPhone SE has been great. And I think people overhype the whole screen size thing too much. It's like, can the guy with the Pro Max really do that much more with his screen than you can with your smaller screen? Come on now. Come on. Like people with the smaller screen, honestly, they just hold it closer to their face. And then iOS gets mad at them for holding the screen too close. I hope they could just put a lot of ads on the side but not play it before the video. It wouldn't result in as good a CPM. There's a reason they do that. I don't think they do it just for fun. Um, if you can't hide the sub count on Tailosive Life, did you already hide the sub count on the EV podcast? You can't hide the sub count on any channel. I would if I could. YouTube removed that option. Um, so there's no way to remove that. I would remove it from all my channels if they let me. I think sub count is super overrated. People put way too much weight and give too much attention to sub counts. They look at sub count as a indication of channel size, which it really is not at all. Sub count almost has no impact on the size of the channel, in my opinion. In my opinion, size of channel should be based on how much viewership it generates, how many people are watching on any given month or week. Like average daily views, I would say, given the course of 30 days. That's how I would dictate channel size. There is a ton of people that subscribe and then never click, and then never click on a video. I would say less than 5% or something of my channel subscribers are watching. So like 90% of my subscribers aren't watching my videos. It's unnecessary. Like, who cares? I've been trying to get people to unsubscribe. But then people thought I was hacked when I did that. So I was like, okay, well, that doesn't work. And so I started doing the skits, and then more people started subscribing. So I was like, ah. I think it's just that people don't go to their sub feed anymore. People mostly just watch what's recommended to them in their homepage. And you'll watch videos from channels you're not subscribed to all the time, and you'll not watch videos you are subscribed to. So most people just, and I don't blame them. I'm the same way. I watch a ton of videos in my home feed. And I'm kind of old fashioned. I like watching all the videos in my subscription feed, but most people aren't doing that, clearly. So it's super overrated. People are like, "Oh, I got this many subscribers." It's like, who cares? It doesn't translate to anything. Unless you're like trying to get monetized and you need 1,000 subs. Okay, then it makes sense. But then it's artificial. YouTube turned it in to mean something, but genuinely it doesn't really mean anything. Um, what translates into like how much internet traffic your channel brings or how much revenue your channel brings, that's all based on watch time and views, like how many people are watching your channel. There are channels way with way less subscribers than me that get way more views than I do, and vice versa. There are channels with way more subs than me that I get way more views than. So it's just a stupid metric in my opinion. I would turn off the sub count if I could, but YouTube doesn't let you. um And if you buy Twitter Blue, you pay to see ads. I know, isn't that silly? I don't get what's going on Twitter. Um, I have a browser that has Adblock built in. Well, then I'm gonna put you in timeout. I don't want I don't want no ad blockers. Um, don't if you're using an ad block, don't tell me because that's basically telling me you're stealing my content. And if you don't like that and you're like, well, Drew is so unreasonable about the ad block. Drew is so annoying whenever he talks about ad block. Good. I don't want you watching my channel if you use ad block. And don't tell me, well, I donate to you. I don't care. It's the principle of the thing. Don't use ad block. You're stealing from other creators. I doubt you're using YouTube just to watch me and nobody else. So Are you going to super chat or join the channel membership of every single video you watch on YouTube? I doubt it. So don't tell me you use Adblock. If you do, don't just keep it quiet. Um, let's see. Downgraded from Pixel 7 to Pixel 5 as well. Much happier. Yeah, Pixel 5. I don't think I ever tried that one out. Hey, it's Randy in the chat. This feels familiar. Miss your face. I miss you too, Randy. Love the podcasts. I'll get out of that escape room eventually. I just listened to both the Tech and EV podcasts this morning, actually. Um, but yeah, you guys are doing great. I feel like you're doing amazing without me. I don't know why you need me there anymore. You guys are all self-sufficient. It's wonderful. I love it. It's refreshing to know that if I like died or something, that there would still be Tailosive content being posted like without me. I actually I love your guys' talks and the way your perspective is given on things. You can tell just in the way like Randy puts a lot of excess thought in a good way, like into his tech and like the way he relates a lot of the news is like, okay, how would I work that into my life? How do I design my desk setup better with the cables and the monitors and pricing? And it carries this Tailosive ethos so strongly. Like if I had to come up with a definition for the word Tailosive, it's like an appreciation for technology while also having an appreciation for affordability. It's like this, we're not just fans of tech for the sake of being fans of tech. We're not just like buy all the latest and greatest stuff and don't ask questions about it. Just buy everything because it's new. No, we appreciate older tech, like Mike still using the M1 MacBook Air and Randy rocking the 13 mini. Um, we appreciate the older tech for the advantages it has, but then we acknowledge the benefits of refurbished, renewed, and all that. Like and we try to find that fulcrum point of like where does the because it's not just all obsession with affordability either. It could be very easy just get the cheapest possible everything, cheapest possible monitor, cheapest possible laptop, and then you'd be working with Chromebooks and Androids, and then you wouldn't be appreciating the tech very much. It would be kind of sluggish and annoying, and you wouldn't like it. So Tailosive's about finding that fulcrum. And I think Randy and Mike are doing an amazing job encompassing that ethos that Tailosive stands for. And they're doing it without me. So I'm kind of like, man, it's fun for me as a viewer because, I've actually never been further away from home than I am right now. I am further away than I've ever been in my entire life. And to see all these new places and learn these new words like kampunka and mot and im, you know, who knows what language I'm speaking. But I'm learning all these phrases and I'm so far from home. But then when I turn into that podcast, I just feel like I'm listening to my friends again. And I'm just like, I'm at home, I'm at peace with it. So it's cool to be a viewer for you guys. This is why it all clicks and makes sense. So, wait, there are other creators besides you? I'm inside. Lord Zero says, I don't use Adblock. I pay for YouTube Premium. That a boy. Good job, Lord Zero. I appreciate you. YouTube Premium is the best ad blocker. Marngel says, is it possible to block people from watching your videos besides setting the video to unlisted or private, of course? No, I don't think so, but I can and have, by the way. Um, some of you guys are gonna hate what I'm about to say, and that's good. I want you to, just for the record. This is why I don't love talking about ad block and stuff, is because it's not really the kind of tech fun that I love. I like talking about what I just talked about with Randy, like the fulcrum between tech appreciation and value, trying to find out what's affordable, but what's useful and what's beautiful and what's aesthetically pleasing, and how do we build an ecosystem that constitutes all factors, price, performance, value, everything. Price per dollar, as you could say. I like talking about that stuff. The ad block gets messy because there's some people that just fundamentally disagree with me. And unfortunately, we often have to just agree to disagree. And I just have to say, I don't like your opinion. It's it's uh, penalizing content creators. So I don't want you to like me. I don't want you to watch me. So it usually goes our separate ways. But what I will do to people who start encouraging others to use ad block or the one that really ticks me off is when you start telling people in the comments how to use an ad block. Now you are using the platform, you're using my videos as a means to show others how to steal the content and how to make the content creators make less money. That really doesn't sit right with me. So when people comment that, I'll either remove the comment, you may not like it, but it's my channel, my choice, or I will hide the user from the channel if they keep it up. So I can mute someone from commenting, which means that they can't weigh in on the live chat and they can't write in the comments anymore. I can't stop you from watching, but I can stop you from spreading ease of access to Adblock. Um, so I don't like it. And if you don't like that, I will silence people. Or like, you're censoring me for my opinion. Yeah, I am. Sorry. This is a platform. I'm not, it's not me. I'm not the federal government. I don't have to respect your right to free speech if I don't want to. I'm allowed to mute you. It hurts the creator far more than YouTube, by the way. That's what upsets me the most is when people are like, oh, I don't want to support a big billionaire company. I'm like, okay, then don't use YouTube. Um, but if you want to use YouTube without the ads or without premium, the content creators, a lot of your favorite ones, some of them might be bigger and are living on millions of dollars a year, but the vast majority of us are probably living with modest salaries. You know, like someone like me is very average salary. I won't say I don't make any money. I make a decent salary, pretty middle class. And when people use ad block, again, that takes away the ad revenue from the video. 55% of the ad revenue goes to the creator, 45% goes to YouTube. So when that drops to zero, YouTube takes a 45% loss. The YouTuber you're watching, who has a modest salary, is taking a 55% loss on that ad that would have played on the video. And YouTube is owned by Google. I don't even think it ever ran at a profit. They mostly just run it to help their search results, but Google makes billions and billions through Google search. So they can afford for YouTube to run at a loss or break even because they get their revenue through other means. And also, Google, all of their staff, all of their employees, they're salaried employees. They get paid the same whether YouTube performs good or not. YouTube could tank and lose a ton of viewership and all their servers could die. The Google employees are getting paid the same thing. The YouTubers actively make less money when more ad block is used. Like, it's a we're we're getting hit and we're not millionaires. A lot of us aren't. I know some of us are. So Mr. Beast, someone brought that up in the comments on my video, which really annoyed me. They're like, I don't want to support Mr. Beast. He doesn't need any more money. It's like, yeah, because Mr. Beast has never done anything good for the world, right? All he does is pay for people's surgeries and pay off people's debt and pay for school and donate to charities and food banks and clean up the ocean and plant trees. Yeah, why would I want to support him, right? It's like, okay, yes, there are immoral YouTubers out there that you could use as an example of like, I don't want to support them. I don't want them to get ad revenue. But please don't use Mr. Beast as your example for content creators I don't feel like supporting. Like, ugh, I don't know. It's a touchy subject for me because it usually just people either agree with me or they get really ticked off at me and then we just get mad at each other. There's no realization. There's just the people who disagree with me just have this assumption and entitlement that everything should be free and YouTube should just give everything away and content creators shouldn't be reimbursed for their work. It's just a big old mess. 92%, Marngel says 92% of my revenue comes from of my channel revenue comes from ads. So yeah, if most of my audience uses ad block, I'd be screwed. Thankfully, that's not the case. That's what I try to tell people when they tell me like, yeah, it's legal, so I'm going to use ad block. Thank God most of the world is not like you. you know, like thank goodness. Because if everyone was, we wouldn't be here. Then you wouldn't have a site to watch. You wouldn't be content creators. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation. Um, I don't want to support $1 billion company, but I want to use their products. I know it's hilarious. Thank you, Pablo. So the people that are annoyed by my opinion, where they say No, Drew, you're wrong, or I hate you, or I disagree with you. I'm like, okay, don't watch me. That's fine. I welcome it. I want to annoy those people away. If I annoy all the ad block users away from my channel, I'll perform better. I'll get my channel will get more ad revenue, right? Or it'll get the same ad revenue and less views, but I don't care about views for the sake of views. Um, yeah, and I'm actually glad that YouTube seems to be pushing for a way to prevent ad block from operating. Like that's good. They should stop people from using it. And I know people, I'll find a way around it. Okay, game on then. YouTube should make it as hard as possible, in my opinion. Um, they're gonna force people to disable ad block, and I think that's a great decision. I know there's a lot of platforms out there, and YouTube makes a lot of dumb decisions. I've been the victim of a lot of YouTube dumb decisions. I was there during the whole adpocalypse. I made less money because of stupid decisions on YouTube's part, and I've been affected by copyright strikes that were not justified. I've been affected by their broken copyright system. There's a lot of things I would fix and change about YouTube if I could. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but I do absolutely think we take it for granted. It is an amazing platform, an amazing site. The fact that you can just for free, I'm paying for premium because I don't like watching ads on the videos, but I don't have to by any means. If I wanted to, for free, I could just upload videos to a website, and if a lot of people watch them, money shows up. You guys realize how insane that is? Like how rare that is on the internet. You realize like that's so bizarre. The fact that you don't have to, work with brands and try to find a sponsor necessarily. You can if you want to, but in the old days you had to get like hired and picked up and you had all these contracts and everything. And you had to pay big money to get data on your videos or your radio, your broadcast. How are people watching it? How's retention? YouTube gives you all these tools, watch time and analytics and geography and what sub geography, sorry, where people are watching from, what languages people are watching, are using to subtitles, when people are tuning out of your video, when people are tuning in. They give you all of this real-time data for free, and you can upload as much as you want, and people can watch as much video as they want. Twitter, because Elon can't afford to pay the bills over there, is limiting how many tweets you can read. So if you don't pay for Twitter, you can only read 600 tweets a day. And I don't mean like open the tweet. I mean like just scrolling, which some people have figured out that equates to about like an hour and a half of scrolling on Twitter, and now things stop loading. Just the site just stops working after that. YouTube would let you watch videos for 24 hours a day if you felt like it. It's incredible. Like I critique it, and there's a lot of things they do that I don't like, but we got to give some credit here. This is an amazing platform. This is an amazing site that lets me just connect to the internet and live stream to millions of people if I want to at different parts in the world, and you guys can write in. And if you feel like super chatting, you can donate in any currency. You can donate in pesos, you can donate in baht, you can donate in Canadian dollars, Australian dollars, euro, British pounds, and it translates it for you, right? They just convert that currency on the back end. I don't have to do anything. It just shows up in a Google check for me. This is an amazing thing. Like, and I don't think we should take it for granted and say, well, they should just give it away for free, though. Um, Wheelbase super chat at Adblocks is fine, but not for YouTube for bad site. Well, I don't, I get by the internet without using any ad blockers, but I agree there are websites that are annoying with ads, but I just don't go to those websites. I think it's that simple. But thank you for the super chat. Um, anyway, hopefully that answers your question. Thoughts on Twitter? Yeah, this kind of ties into that earlier. Oh, sorry, Wheelbase super chatted another question. I should address that first. Um, they said, how many years do you think M1 Max will last? I think, well, last is an interesting question. Like, do you mean years of software support or like until they stop breaking? If we're talking years of software support, I think like 8 to 10 easily, maybe more. If you're talking like until it just stops working, stops turning on, who knows? My dad has some iMacs and some Macs. I did an old live stream on here a long time ago. Um, Someone in Hyrule will super chat in rupees. I know you're joking, but there have been rupee donations. I forget where. Is it India? But there's been donations from India. Yeah, there's just this, it's this very simple. donation service. But anyway, uh, my dad has some old Macs that I've live streamed that are like 20, 30 years old that still work. I have an original iPhone that still turns on and functions properly. Um, so yeah, I think in terms of like, does the computer turn on and function? Like it might not run the latest apps and websites might stop working as they move on to new standards and stuff. But over time, as long as it just turns on and can it play the files that you put on there, yeah, I could see M1 Max lasting easily 20, 30 years, maybe more. There's not a lot of moving parts to them, so I don't see why they would start failing. Um, when I pay for YouTube Premium, I find that I'm still watching mostly sponsored content and self-promotion half the time. Drew doesn't do that, but almost every other tech channel does. Well, that's why I don't watch a lot of other tech channels. It's annoying, but I don't think that justifies ad block. Again, that hurts the creator still. That content creator that is relying on sponsorship revenue is probably also relying on AdSense. You know, it'd be one thing if they said, I'll do sponsors, but I'll turn off ads on my video, but they don't do that. That's their choice, and it's annoying, I agree, but I don't think that justifies the use of Adblock. Um, is it the same original iPhone you did a video on back in 2017? Yes, I've had that same iPhone. Um, I think Nick gave it to me back in 2017. He had two for some reason. He had uh, he had two original iPhones and he said I could have one of them for he surprised me. He just said there's going to be something in the mail for you. He didn't tell me what it was and then it was the original iPhone. So I did that video on it and I can't remember. Did it do well? Maybe I should do another video on it. But yeah, it's the same original iPhone and it still turns on. It still works. YouTube is not only supported by ad revenue, Google profits off our data, which they can use to sell, tweak our ad. Yeah, but it's mostly ad revenue. The data tracking is negligible. And again, ad block is mostly hurting content creators. It doesn't mostly hurt YouTube. It hurts YouTube a little bit, but it hurts the creators you're watching far more than YouTube, which is why I'm against it. Um, I'm a content creator. I don't get to mine your data and make money off of that. And again, 55%, like Marngel said earlier, 92% of his channel's revenue comes from ads. So if you use ad block on him, you go, ha ha, I'm taking away revenue from YouTube. Suck it, YouTube. But YouTube doesn't care. They're getting money through Google search, but you just penalized the content creator you're watching. They're the one that's taking the impact of that punch. It's like YouTube holding up the content creator and you're punching the content creator saying, haha, take that, YouTube. But you love the content creator. You're watching them all the time. Like, come on. Um, a mine says you have convinced me I'm getting rid of my ad blocker. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate hearing that. That means a lot to me. Seriously, I appreciate that. Can you imagine if Google decides to shut down YouTube? I wouldn't know what to do with my life. I'd be devastated. I don't think they would shut it down, but I think with the continued use of ad blockers, if the site becomes more and more expensive to run and harder to keep profitable, um, like right now, it exists mainly because it helps Google's algorithm. Like when you search things, sometimes they link YouTube videos. So by having that integration, it helps their bottom line. But back when they were they don't report YouTube profitability anymore. But back when they did, it was not profitable. They were running it at a loss just for the sake of it helps our algorithm. But at any point, they could decide, you know what, we're losing too much money on this. We're going to make it way worse. At any time, they could do that. They could start saying, okay, you can't upload 4K videos for free anymore. Now you got to pay 20 bucks a month to upload more than a certain number of videos. Like maybe your first 100 videos are free, but then after that, you got to start paying 20 bucks a month. And if I want to have like what I have, I've got over 2,000 videos. If you add in my other channels, I probably have more like 4,000 videos that YouTube is holding on their servers for free that are high resolution that I could watch anywhere in the world on any device. It's basically just free unlimited cloud storage. You can upload 8K 60 FPS HDR content if you feel like it, and they will hold it forever. At any point, if they decide, okay, actually, we're holding a lot of your videos, we're going to start charging you 40 bucks a month. I just have to do it. I basically have no choice.
Or I would just upload a lot less. I'd be like, okay, I'm not gonna maybe do as much vlogging, or I'm not gonna post as regularly. I'm not gonna live stream as regularly because I can't afford it. Or we're gonna take 50% of the ad revenue instead of 45. You know, they could make it worse on us at any time. So I'm in favor of YouTube being very, very happy with the state of the platform because they could take all of this away if they felt like it. Um, Let's see. Would it be possible to create an upgradable Apple Silicon iMac? I think it's possible, but I don't know how it would allow for integrated memory and all the benefits of the M chips. The problem with Apple Silicon being upgradable is that it's all a system on chip design. So it's all soldered together. It's all just a singular chip. So if you wanted to upgrade it, you'd basically have to upgrade the entire chip, um, which at that point I don't think would make that big a difference because depending on what architecture the chip is on, the socket probably won't fit. Um, so I don't think there's a very easy way to make it upgradable. Um, I have an old heavy white plastic MacBook that still works. Yeah, yeah, yeah. My dad has one of those too. It's amazing how well Macs will age, to be honest with you. Should I buy YouTube Premium on the iPhone app or on the web then, since I know it was a good deal when I got that old week trial from a long ago? It's always cheaper on the web. I highly recommend that. The only reason it's more expensive on the mobile app is because Apple takes a 30% cut of it, which isn't necessary in my opinion, but that's just the way the Apple App Store works. So you just sign up for YouTube Premium. If you go annual, um, it ends up costing like $10 a month, I think. So it's like $10 a month for ad-free YouTube, and you can download videos and all of the content creators you're supporting. Even if you only watch one of their videos every 2 months, you're still supporting them without the ads, and maybe they have sponsors, but I guess you can put up with the sponsors or not watch those creators as much. It's up to you. Or just let the content creator know you don't like it when they do sponsored videos or whatever. Um, the more aggressively they counter ad blocking, the fewer people will use it. That's great. I'm all in favor of that. Stop using it. Stop. If you're insistent on using ad block, then you're just unnecessary strain on the servers. If Apple didn't exist at all today, what would you be using as phone, watch, earphones, laptop, and desktop setup? There's not really much of a choice, right? I'd have Windows and a PC, and I guess I'd have to use Android, right? I'd probably go with a fairly Pixel slash Surface ecosystem. I would want it to be first party, vertically integrated software, hardware, and that kind of thing. Um, I pay for YouTube Premium on my iPhone because I get 3% cash back on my Apple Card. Well, that's cool, but don't you still end up paying more? That 3% I don't think accommodates for the extra 30% you have to pay through the app, but I mean, okay. Your call. Um, Your passion for Apple's ecosystem shines through in every video he produces, whether he's unboxing the latest iPhone or delving into the. Is this an AI or something? I don't dive into the intricacies of Mac OS. Do you know I also hate iPads? Just remind everybody of that next time they say my love of the Apple ecosystem. I did not bring my iPad on this trip. I have not touched an iPad since um, Dub, I think. If Apple didn't exist, the rest of the tech landscape likely wouldn't be as good. That's true. It probably wouldn't. Google would more likely slash YouTuber incomes than make YouTube pay to watch. YouTubers are overpaid. I agree. But I do think it's very nice that we are paid what we are. Um, but I think the bigger problem isn't so much YouTubers being overpaid, it's that they inflate their budget much larger than they need to. I think the problem typically lies in that YouTubers sometimes have a slow burn where they very, very slowly build up traffic and get more and more views, and then they start getting full time. But they get accustomed to this mindset of, okay, all it takes is one video and then it blows up, and then I'm popular and now I'm making money and now I'm making. What typically will happen is a YouTuber will suddenly be generating a lot more revenue than they've ever generated before because they get into the right time at the right place with the right partnership, and all of a sudden they have all this extra money. And what that means is typically someone who is not used to having a lot of money now has a lot of money. And because it's YouTube and they're seeing themselves grow and they have bigger plan, oh, and we're going to get bigger and we're going to keep growing and get more and more and more revenue. They have this like big, very ambitious entrepreneurial spirit that makes them think, oh, I'm unstoppable, or I'm just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. So that makes them want to, when you generate a bunch of revenue, you want to invest all of that again back into the business so that you can keep that, Mr. Beast style content strategy of like, okay, I had a good performing video. I'll use all the money from that video on the next video. So I got to get bigger and bigger budget. So you try to snowball your YouTube success, and that typically results in most of them blowing all the money they make. But then you start getting into the lower months. Now you're not growing anymore, and you're like, wait a second, but you've inflated your budget, you've hired people, or you've rented out office space or buildings or whatever, or maybe not even it's for work, it's just your lifestyle. You just rented out a nice house or bought a car you couldn't afford. So you expected the revenue to stay the same and it didn't. And that's what pushes, I think, a lot of people to do more sponsorships and okay, I need more money, I got to start selling merch and keep my budget up here. So I need to push harder to keep the revenue high. Um, so I think I'm overpaid personally. I don't disagree with that. And I would keep making YouTube videos even if YouTube cut the ad revenue down and said I'm only going to take 55 or I'm only going to take 50% now instead of 55. Um, but of course, there's other means to generating revenue on YouTube. So content creators will just fall back on that. Um, iPads, if you don't have a modern MacBook, are pretty good. I suppose they're good for note taking and Apple Pencil stuff. I just don't use the Apple Pencil for anything anymore. I haven't used my iPad ever since I graduated college a few weeks ago. That's funny. Um, they should make the next macOS Tailosive, and every time you turn on the Mac, all you hear is Tailosive saying "Good morning." That would be amazing. I agree. I would love that. Um, yes, Lee. Yeah, Randy had a good point earlier. He said it's not like you're losing anything by them leaving. They don't benefit the health of the channel. Exactly. If you're using Adblock, bye bye. See you later. Um, let's see. He did say because we miss you. I miss you guys too. Have I considered doing an OnlyFans? Absolutely. Of course. No, I haven't. I'm just kidding. I use my iPad Mini 6 and my iPad Pro M1 every day. That's impressive to me. I have one iPad and I don't use it. You have two iPads and somehow you use both. Jeez, what industry would you go into if you couldn't do YouTube anymore? Well, I mean, I would still probably try to do video content on other platforms. Like I might try to, Patreon has started doing their own web video hosting now. I'd probably try Twitter if I couldn't do YouTube anymore. I don't know. I'd look around to see if there were some other platforms that I could maybe try to make a living off of, but I like making videos and live streaming. I think I'm happy with where I'm at, and I would do my best to emulate this on another platform if YouTube fell apart. But if I wasn't making YouTube videos, and I'm considering podcasting to be a part of that too. I like podcasting. Um, I don't know, honestly. Maybe I'd work in tech support, or maybe I'd work at an Apple store or something. I don't think I would enjoy that more than what I'm doing right now, but I seem to be good at helping people make tech decisions. My plan before that I agreed with on my parents, because I told my parents out of high school, everyone in my family is college educated and stuff, so it was kind of expected of me to go to college out of high school. And I just was not enjoying high school. And I did my last year of high school at a community college, so I was kind of already starting college. And I said, I don't want to keep going to college. Like I'm not enjoying it and it feels like a waste of time and I really want to pursue the YouTube stuff. And they said, "Okay, but we don't want you to just do that. We want you to do a different line of work for a while and have a backup plan in case YouTube doesn't work out." Which was fair and wise, I think. But the plan was I was working at this mansion ranch, which if you go back on Tailosive Life long enough, you'll see vlogs I did at that mansion ranch. But the backup plan was, okay, you can work at the Mandarin Ranch, which was like a minimum wage. I think it was actually below minimum wage. It was kind of under the table. Well, it was cash reported, but I don't think he was paying me enough. So I paid taxes on it. It wasn't necessarily under the table. It was just the hours I was putting in was more than um, I was getting paid in regards to minimum wage. But I didn't care. I knew the guy. He was a family friend of ours, so I didn't really care. But I worked that job for a year, and the plan was after that year, if YouTube isn't going anywhere, then I was going to go to the lineman's college. So there's a lineman college where you would be trained. I think it only takes like 2 years or 1 year. You'd go to this trade school and they would teach you how to work on power lines and telephone lines and stuff. And just after 1 year or 2 years of trade school, and it was pretty cheap, it was cheaper than college, I think. Um, you would go around and work on those wires and stuff, and it was pretty good pay. I think it was like above average pay, like above middle class pay, and the only issue was you had to travel quite a bit. But that was the backup plan. They said you could work on the Mandarin Ranch for a year, and after that, you should probably go to the lineman's college. But luckily, YouTube was doing pretty well after that first year. So I decided, okay, I think it's doing well enough that I can quit working at the Mandarin Ranch and do YouTube full time. And that was, I quit back in May of 2017, and I've been full time ever since. What time is it where I'm at? It is 10:51 a.m. I'll probably wrap up the stream here pretty soon. Um, let's see. What do I think about Euler Ultra? I have no idea what that is. Do I not use Adblock for any other website too? I don't use any ad blockers, no. Um, I don't there's websites I've gone to that have way too many ads that annoyed me, but I just leave. I just I'm like, okay, I'm not using this site. Um, I don't know if it counts as an ad blocker, but I think a couple times I've used Reader View, but that's built into Safari. That's not like a third party extension or anything. Um, a couple times, usually if I'm just getting a screenshot for something, like I need a screenshot of a headline for a video I'm making, I'll turn on Reader View occasionally. But most of the time I don't. I rarely turn it on, but that's like a built-in thing in Safari. I don't know if that counts as an ad blocker, but I rarely use it anyway. What part of the Philippines are you in now? I'm in Tacloban now. I'm actually no longer in the Philippines, believe it or not. Um, I've left the country. The channel members know where I'm at because I did a members only stream last week, and I revealed it. But you'll have to stay tuned on Talos of Life to see where I'm at now. You won't have to wait too long. You'll know soon enough. But I'd like you to guess based on that background. What do you think? Where am I at? I've actually been out of the Philippines for over a week now. I intentionally stage out my postings of videos, um, so that, for my family's privacy and my own, I don't post where a location where I'm at very quick. So if I post a video of me in some public place, you know that I've not been there for very long. I wait a while before I post the video. South America. Ooh, that's an interesting guess. Um, let's see. It would be borderline reckless not to install an ad blocker on a senior citizen's computer. It's a security feature at this point. I suppose if they're browsing the web and you don't trust them tapping on certain links, but um, I don't think that changes the consequences of it. Like to me, it's trying to justify like when is it okay to steal something? That's that's the discussion I think it is. I think the problem I have with people is they justifying what if it's this or what if it's this. You're not accepting the fact that there is a consequence to it, which is I wish what you would do. Maybe there's a justification where you could say the consequence is worth it. It's okay to steal in this case, like I'm sure some of you would say if it's the whole Les Mis plot, right? If a guy's family is stealing, I mean, sorry, starving. If a guy's family is starving, is he wrong to steal the loaf of bread and give it to his family? That's a more extreme scenario, but it's the same ethical dilemma in my head. Yeah, the family needs to eat, So I guess he's right to steal the bread, but does that make stealing okay? Probably not. So should the guy be freed of all charges? It's a moral debate, but I don't think that's most people using Adblock. I don't think most people using Adblock are just on this moral fence that they can't decide. It's mostly just, I'm annoyed, so I'll just steal. Um, let's see. I know you're not where I am. It's too green where you are. That's fair. Singapore. Oh, that's a good one. Australia. Ooh, we got a lot of interesting guesses. Using ad blocker isn't being Robin Hood, it's robbing a home. That's a good way of putting it, Ryan. Ad block is robbing the poor. Um, that and there are specific scam and pop-up blockers that aren't ad blockers. Well, I would just say the adults or the old people shouldn't be going to those sites in the first place. Um, if they're going to a site where there's pop-ups and scams that will take away their money, I mean, there's also like scammers on the phone all the time. So like take away their phone, I guess. Um, let's see. You told us the time, which narrows it down. Australia. I will say someone in the chat has guessed correctly. That is not a channel member. How about that? I should be visited Apple Park since I'm at San Francisco and I'm at the airport. Oh, that's cool. I was there not that long ago. Ooh, I should steal my own content to see how it works. James says, I've worked in tech support for a program that ran off of AutoCAD. The program was for engineers to document cables and equipment before they started placing it out in real life. Interesting. That's kind of similar to the lineman's college thing. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? There's all kinds of hypotheticals that could have happened if YouTube didn't work out. Given the advancements in macOS Sonoma and its growing popularity, do you think it's possible that macOS could eventually pose a credible challenge to Windows in the gaming industry? No, because I don't think the gaming industry has anything to do with gaming performance or the operating system. It has everything to do with exclusive titles. That's the whole PlayStation versus Xbox battle. It's never been about which one has the better GPU, which one has the better controller. None of that matters to anybody. All that matters is which console has the game they want to play. It's the same thing with Nintendo. People don't buy the Switch because it's superior hardware. The Nintendo Switch is actually pretty cheap hardware. Like it has graphics worse than your phone, but that doesn't stop people from buying it. The people buy it because it has the game titles they want. And so far, I mean, sure, the gaming performance on the Mac has gotten better, and they've worked with a few devs to bring some older games to the Mac, but they're always going to be people that prefer PC because that's going to be where the latest titles drop. And the gaming industry, the gaming PC market is always going to care more about modularity and building their own PCs. And a lot of them just hate Apple because Apple has their own strict policy on App Store and aluminum build and everything. And people are going to want to mess and tinker with their own stuff, and Apple's just less of that. Gaming has nothing to do with the performance of the game. Good afternoon, evening. Right, where are you again? Ding, ding, ding. Someone, couple people have gotten it right in the chat. But who? But who? Given the advancements, oh, sorry, I just read that. The next macOS should be macOS Napa Valley. Well, they kind of just acknowledge that, right? I still want weed. macOS weed would be hilarious. I still think. I stand by that. But anyway, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I've been live for a while now, but I think I should wrap it up here. But as we're wrapping it up, I just need to give a very, very special thank you and shout out to the Ultra members, Tyler Forte, Riley McGinnis, Bobby Forsey, Chris, Hasael Para Castañada, and Nicholas Linthicum. Thank you guys for your extra level support. Thank you for the super chats, the channel members. You guys are way too kind. I've got more videos coming for you shortly, so stay tuned and have an excellent rest of your evening, morning, or afternoon. Good morning. Good morning. Bye bye.